Today, we're diving into a really powerful philosophy from Thailand that kind of challenges everything we think we know about our relationship with, well, ourselves, each other, and the world. It's called the Sufficiency Economy Philosophy, and honestly, it might just change the way you see everything.
But before we get into all the details, I want to start with a pretty fundamental question, one that really sits at the heart of this entire idea. In a world that is constantly screaming at us to want more, to buy more, to be more, are we really anything more than just consumers?
To figure that out, here's the journey we're going to take. First, we'll talk about what a mental operating system is. Then, we'll look at three different ways of seeing humanity: the materialist, the idealist, and something called the holistic alternative. After that, we'll get into our own dual nature and finally see how this all clicks together into a powerful philosophy for balance.
Okay, so to really get this philosophy, we first have to kind of redefine what philosophy even means here. It's not some dusty, abstract thing you study in a university. It's way more personal than that.
Think of it like your personal mindset, almost like the operating system for your brain. It's that underlying set of beliefs and values that quietly directs how you think, what you say, and what you do. It's the thing that gives meaning to everything, from money and work all the way to happiness itself. So let's check out the first of these three operating systems. And, well, this is one that probably feels pretty familiar to most of us. It's the materialist worldview.
At its core, materialism can pretty much be summed up with this simple idea. Happiness is having more. It's the belief that fulfillment comes from the outside world, from all the things we can get our hands on.
Now, this worldview has some huge implications. It basically argues that only physical stuff is real, which means we humans are just complex biological machines. So the goal of life? Well, it becomes about getting physical happiness through consumption. This is the absolute bedrock of modern capitalism, and it often leads to that cycle of overconsumption, that constant chase for more that never, ever feels satisfied.
But what if the answer isn't out there at all? There's a completely opposite perspective, one that looks inward for the truth. This is the idealist worldview.
The core belief here is that the physical world is just secondary. What really, truly matters is the internal world of your mind and your spirit. You see, in the idealist's view, the mind is the main reality. It's the source of our consciousness, our reason. It's what separates us from other animals. So the goal of life shifts completely. It's not about collecting things anymore. It's about cultivating your mind and finding spiritual liberation, often by detaching from the very same physical desires that materialism is obsessed with.
So we have two extremes, right? One is totally focused on the external physical world, and the other is all about the internal spiritual world. But what if this is a false choice? What if there's a third way? And that brings us to the holistic alternative.
The big idea of holism is interconnectedness. It suggests that reality isn't some competition between mind and matter. Instead, it's this incredibly complex network where lots of different things are real and they all exist together. This view sees us humans as multidimensional. Yeah, we have physical needs for sure, but we also have mental, emotional, and social ones. The goal of life, then, isn't to just max out one of those at the expense of all the others. It's to find a harmonious balance between all of our different parts.
And right here, this is the core of our explainer. This holistic idea that we are complex beings living in an interconnected world is the very foundation of the sufficiency economy philosophy.
So how does the sufficiency economy philosophy actually apply this holistic view? Well, it starts by recognizing a fundamental human duality, the idea that we have two competing but also complementary natures inside us.
On one hand, we are a natural being. We're a biological organism, governed by the laws of nature. We have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to survive. But on the other hand, we are also a cultural being, a social animal with an ego, an identity, and all these complex roles. The great challenge of modern life is figuring out how to honor and balance both of these essential parts of who we are.
And that brings us to how this all works in practice. The sufficiency economy philosophy, or SEP, is basically presented as a path to find that balance in a world that has totally lost its way.
You can think of this as the modern human story in 4 quick steps. We created these incredible tools, which gave us immense power. But that power, guided by that materialist mindset, just led to overconsumption and destruction. The sufficiency economy philosophy is put forward as the necessary course correction, a way to use our intelligence not just to take more, but to actually live in balance with our world.
Ultimately, that's what this is all about. It's not some complicated economic theory you'd read in a textbook. It's a practical guide. It's a mental operating system for finding that sweet spot between our natural needs and our cultural desires, making sure we can live sustainably with ourselves and with the planet.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In a culture that just relentlessly pushes for more, maybe the most powerful, the most radical, and the most necessary idea we can embrace is simply knowing what is enough.